Wow.
So, we went off the air about a minute ago, and we just got the text message that Conor McGregor has retired once again from mixed martial arts. Once again, in the middle of the night last year in 2019, he retired on April Fool's Day.
Okay.
Following an appearance on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, but now Conor McGregor once again has
the text, if you can.
Yeah, so
or the tweet rather.
Conor McGregor on Twitter just a few moments ago. Hey guys, I've decided to retire from fighting. Thank you for all the amazing memories. What a ride it's been. Here's a picture of myself and my mother in Las Vegas post one of my world title wins. Pick the home of your dreams, Mags. I love you. Whatever you desire, it's yours.
Very bizarre. Definitely, I guess he did the classy thing. He didn't announce it in the middle of the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Which was nice. A very odd choice. I don't buy it, to be honest. I don't think it'll last. It is very odd.
It's the second time that...
Is it only the second? I thought there was another one.
It's the most recent. It's been at least two. Getting stuff in as we go along. It's been kind of a concurrent trend over the past few weeks. We've seen a real rift between the UFC and its stars. It began with Jon Jones a few weeks ago, who basically vacated, in theory, the UFC light heavyweight title after a very public scuffle between he and UFC president Dana White over a potential super fight. Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight to fight Francis Ngannou.
Then Cejudo.
Starting even before that. Yeah, you're right. Henry Cejudo retiring
immediately after his fight.
Yeah, after a win, retiring. The bantamweight title is vacant. Henry Cejudo retiring after his win at UFC 249 a month ago. Then Jon Jones getting into a contractual kerfuffle with Dana White, basically claiming that he did not want to give up. Dana White said that Jon Jones was asking for a ridiculous amount of money. Jones calling bullshit on that. And then this week, Jorge Masvidal demanding his release from the UFC after not getting what he felt was a fair and equitable offer for either a fight against Kamaru Usman or a fight against Conor McGregor. There's a lot up in the air right now.
Khabib as well was always
the biggest, but to be clear, right now, no, in comparison to all that, the biggest fight in the world, the biggest fighter in mixed martial arts, hell, you can make the argument the biggest fighter in sports. Tyson Fury may have made the most money, but no one moves the needle more than Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
And his fight against Donald Cerrone, big fight, was not for a title, was a fight that, if it wasn't anybody else but Conor McGregor, would not be the main event of a pay-per-view.
Well, this is strange because just, a week ago he was accepted Anderson Silva's
He accepted Anderson
Silva. Yeah, that's why it's hard for me to buy this. I mean, I love Conor. I mean, I just listed him as my favorite fighter, no doubt, but it's hard for me to take any of these retirement speeches in boxing or mixed martial arts seriously, because how many times we've seen people bounce back from it. This one has a strange tone to it.
Yeah.
I will say the other ones, I mean, literally, one time he just posted on Instagram or whatever, hey, by the way, I'm retired. It was sort of
he's been
nonchalant. I don't know that he'll stay retired. I doubt it personally. I still think he's got a lot of gas in the tank and a lot of desire, unless this is a ploy to get something out of it. But there's a lot of contention between the fighters and Dana at this point. A lot of big stars saying that they want out. Why now is the interesting thing.
I think it's a pylon. Well, you look at this, a lot of people are mad right now. Dana White is flaunting Fight Island, flaunting the amount of money it cost to get Fight Island not only off the ground, but to build the infrastructure and the time it's taken to build up the idea of Fight Island. And now it's in Abu Dhabi. There's this whole mystery around it. Dana's going to be living on Fight Island for the entire month of July.
And the next pay-per-view, where's the next pay-per-view scheduled to be? Or it's just not announced at the moment?
Not announced yet. Nothing's really official. There are Fight Island cards that are supposed to happen in July.
Fight Island, and it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, you keep saying it, and I'm like, as if it's a real thing because it's a real thing.
It's an honest-to-God thing that's happening.
Fight Island.
And you look at Dana White...
Fight Island is like a Roger Corman film. The title, or one of those sci-fi movies, like Sharknado, Fight Island.
It's pretty fucking ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous.
Ridiculous times call for ridiculous measures.
But
let's be honest.
when you're Dana White, when you're one of the first sporting leagues to come back in the midst of this pandemic, and you're talking about Fight Island, and you lose Khabib, and you can head on over to MMAmania.com right now. It was April 19th, when Conor McGregor most recently retired. It was April 19th of 2019 when he retired following April 19th, 2016 was his first retirement.
Oh, is
his
that
second
true?
retirement was in 2019 after that appearance on the Tonight Show where he tweeted at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever.
It's got to be great if you're Jimmy Fallon. You do a whole interview, and then after the interview, the guy retires. Thanks for the scoop, Conor. Look, I like Conor McGregor. I just don't buy it. It's a weird announcement. This is doing what he wants it to do, I guess, to get people talking about him. But at 31 years old, I don't.
But does he need to be talked about? He hasn't fought since January.
Well, that's probably
and
why
he's continuously
talked
about. That's the thing. Is like.
Yeah, I know. I get it. He's still, but that's why I think he's far from done. Is this a backlash
to Dana's Fight Island bullshit? Because if Dana's saying all this, we're spending so much money on Fight Island, we're doing all this, we're doing all that, and then you have
fighters who feel like they're underpaid.
You have Henry Cejudo, John Jones, and Jorge Masvidal, three of the biggest fighters in the sport. Masvidal just headlined Madison Square Garden. John Jones, biggest fighter outside of Conor McGregor in the UFC. And then Cejudo, two division champion, former Olympian, a guy that was getting a lot of burn from the UFC.
Another young guy.
Yeah, all three of them walking. All three of them either threatening to walk or walking away from the UFC in the midst of all this.
Maybe it's contract negotiations. Maybe people who don't plan on fighting anyway for a while.
It feels
goes down.
If it's concussive. Like, you see all these dominoes falling over the past month. And you look at how the UFC responds to this. Dana treats it the same way that a lot of sports owners before the 1970s treated it. Pre-Curt Flood. Curt Flood, for those who don't know, was the first athlete to sue for the right of free agency. And he called himself a well-paid slave. There's a great book called Well-Paid Slave that details Curt Flood's battle for the ability to become a free agent. But, damn.
That's crazy.
This is the biggest fuck you to Dana White that you can think of.
Well, I mean, Conor is bigger than the sport to some degree. He can go on and do a lot of things. He can draw big money with that Pacquiao fight that we heard about.
Yeah.
Even though Pacquiao's past his prime, he can go off to the WWE and do some great things there. So there's a lot of things Conor can do. His whiskey does well. I mean, he's done well for himself, and he doesn't necessarily need to fight, but a lot of people don't, and they continue to do it. But maybe at some point, a guy like Conor, who's made, is making hundreds of millions off of a boxing match.
He's set for life.
He's set for
proper
life for
12,
sure,
all this. He's fairly set for the rest of his life and the rest of his kids' lives. But
maybe he wasn't happy with the payday from.
It definitely had
fight.
Something broke this week within the UFC, because if Jones, Masvidal, and Conor are like, fuck you, there's a disparate disconnect between Dana White and his top fighters, because I feel like Dana is in defense mode because Endeavor, the parent company of the UFC, massive layoffs. They've had to borrow money.
UFC's had to borrow?
Endeavor. The UFC basically rushing a return because they needed to fulfill the contractually obligated amount of events for ESPN to make hundreds of millions of dollars. And for those who are just joining us, Conor McGregor, at the top of the hour, I'm Matt Ryan, that's Harry Terjanian, announced his retirement on Twitter. Once again, Conor McGregor's message: "Hey guys, I've decided to retire from fighting. Thank you for all the amazing memories. What a ride it's been. Here's a picture of myself and my mother in Las Vegas, post one of my world title wins. Pick the home of your dreams, Mags. I love you. Whatever you desire, it's yours." This is major news coming out of UFC 250 here tonight. A lot of people in the chat, people asking why the fuck is Conor retiring. But I need to
figure that out. But it does seem strange, like you said, the timing of this. That after John Jones wants out and Jorge Masvidal has issues, that all of a sudden Conor picks now to retire. Again, he doesn't need the money, but he hasn't needed it in a while. For a while. He finishes off his career, if this indeed is his retirement, 22 wins, 4 losses, 19 wins by knockout. I mean, an incredible amount. All 4 by submission, and he had just made a comeback this year, defeating Donald Cowboy Cerrone in a pretty impressive fashion, coming off that loss to Khabib. I can never pronounce his name. Nurmagomedov. Khabib, and almost starting a riot. I mean, controversy creates cash. Conor has created plenty of cash in his days. It's just odd. I don't buy it as a retirement, to be honest. It's
Big Worm in the chat agreeing with you, claiming it's a leverage game.
Sure. Yeah. But I think, listen,
ESPN,
to what level is it in a leverage game? Yeah.
ESPN making it official, announcing Conor McGregor's retirement. We got on it before ESPN.
Hey, we beat ESPN.
Thanks, Tom. Because as soon as we go off the air, Tom texts me.
Oh my God.
Conor McGregor just retired.
Conor, if you could have just tweeted that like 30 seconds earlier, it would have helped us out a lot, man.
But this is White Knight saying he's done it before. He's definitely not retiring. Yeah, you can say he's not retiring. You don't believe it.
One day
it's the Terry Funk thing. It's the wrestling retirement. MMA retirements and wrestling retirements they last as long as the next check.
Yeah, I mean, a big enough offer would drag him out of there. It's been a weird year for the UFC to begin with. It's a weird year for everybody. But in particular, UFC has to pick up some ground. And to have 3 fighters like that say that they're done. And only at 31 years of age. I mean, I feel like he still has some juice left in him. Some great attraction fights, no doubt. I was looking forward to the possibility of that Anderson Silva fight. I know it's not.
I would have loved that
Silva
fight
in his prime, but it would have been something, it's a spectacle. Anytime Conor's on the card, it's interesting,
The Musk in the chat, if he really does retire, which I don't believe, he's a big-ass pussy. He didn't want the smoke with Gaethje or Khabib. I don't know if it's that. I think
it has anything to do
it
with
has
that.
everything to do with what his next fight was going to be. Dana said he should wait for the winner of Gaethje and Khabib. He wanted Silva. He probably wanted to go for 3 titles. He wanted to fight Usman, or he wanted to go after Jorge and the BMF belt. So you look at that. You look at all those options on the table, and I hate to keep going back to it, but Fight Island. I think Fight Island has turned in. I think Fight Island pissed off a lot of people. It's become the Fire Fest of the UFC. It became this huge thing, and it's become a huge boondoggle and a huge cost for the UFC. But what's the net return? What's the net return for that?
The idea behind Fight Island is to get crowds back there?
No, it's to get international fighters. This was a play to get Russians and the Brazilians and all these international fighters.
So that they can travel internationally because they can't come into the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I understand I just don't understand why it costs so much money.
Well, you're building an entire arena and an entire infrastructure.
That seems insane.
And more than likely, we don't know.
Couldn't have done this by putting up some tents and some great lighting. I mean,
but look at it like this: if Fight Island is actually in Abu Dhabi, if it's in Abu Dhabi like they claim it is,
last
time it was in Abu Dhabi, it was paid by the government of Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
of the UAE, pardon me, the UAE government. If Fight Island is in the UAE, don't you think the UAE is fucking paying for it?
You would think.
But Dana's basically inferring continuously that it's his money. It's the UFC's money. And then if you're Henry Cejudo, if you're John Jones, if you're Conor McGregor, if you're Jorge Masvidal, if you're Kamaru Usman, and you're looking at this and Dana's like, Fight Island's going to be costing all this and whatever the fuck, like, well, won't you get mad?
Yeah.
Especially when your rights aren't protected?
Well, no doubt UFC is...
mixed martial arts is the only... Mixed martial arts, boxing... Boxing has the Ali Act, which protects fighters. MMA has nothing close to the Ali Act. Leslie Smith, who I interviewed back in December, leading Project Spearhead, which is the closest thing we have to the potential of a union in mixed martial arts. But it's not really gotten anywhere. You're looking at the biggest stars in the sport walking away from the UFC in what can be considered its most trying time.
Yeah. UFC fighters are notoriously underpaid in comparison to...
it's about
to
less
professional
than a
boxers.
third of the income goes to fighters. Less than a third.
That's it's the number one game in town until someone like Bellator steps up, but it's hard. It could be years before that ever happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's not impossible, but it's a strange thing. But it's a battle that goes on. Money's always an issue. Again, Conor McGregor made more money in that single boxing match with Floyd Mayweather than he's made in the UFC. I mean, it's not even close. So. Yeah, you can understand the frustration. It's just very odd and very peculiar. And, we don't even know when Fight Island's going to be done. Fight Island is the reason these fighters are quitting.
Yeah. This is, for those who are MMA fans, this is the moment where the Zuffa level of UFC is really intersecting with the SEG era of the UFC. You're seeing major names walk away from the UFC, most of them champions, because they're not able to get paid. You saw the same thing happen with Randy Couture. We've seen it with other champions, but this was in the SEG era or the pre-Zuffa.
Change? I mean, it is kind of a weird system. It's just such a new sport, and yet because it's a new sport, they were able to take advantage of it. And the fighters aren't getting paid. They're just not.
If you're looking at it from the perspective of a fighter, and if Conor McGregor is working us or ribbing us or just like, playing or trolling somebody in the chat, Capono saying it, he's retired 10 times. Yeah, this is MMA retirements are like wrestling retirements. They last until they don't.
Yeah.
And we're just reacting to a story that's happening right now.
It's more peculiar. I think the timing of it's not just Conor's announcement. It's like it's what you said. It's the fact that it combines all these within the last year, all this frustration, or 2020, all this frustration from a lot of fighters and a lot of top names.
It's the water balloon. It's something I came up with on One More Word, a podcast I do about pro football with Marvin Williams, which you can subscribe to at link.tree, linktr.ee/onemoreword. The water balloon theory.
Yeah.
We all have a water balloon. And the more you deal with shit, the more it fills. The more of a situation, the more stressful, the more tenuous it fills and fills and fills and until it bursts. Fight Island, I think, is that burst point for UFC. I really feel that Dana tried to lean all the way in on Fight Island. Tried leaning all the way in on returning no matter what. You're hedging your bets on a lot of things that you don't know you're going to get the net return on. And for Dana to basically put his top fighters' concerns and the potential of all these super fights, like John Jones is worth the amount of money he's asking for a super fight with Francis Ngannou. If you told me Francis Ngannou versus John Jones, I'm thinking that gets 800,000 buys, 700,000 buys at minimum.
Something is said, especially for that situation. I mean, that's no walk in the park.
No.
For John Jones. I mean, that he loses that fight, that hurts his legacy, that hurts his reputation as a fighter. And I guess at some point you go, well, what am I doing here?
Shout out to Ricardo Emanuel with the super chat, sending us $2 for the cause.
Yay.
This seems real, and yeah, it does feel real. It does feel real until it's not. White Knight in the chat, he doesn't need the money to prove anything, but I did hear something about him and Usman. You've got to wonder if Dana's really alienating himself from the fighters and alienating himself from those who have helped build the UFC the past few years. Is this a point where if you're losing all of these stars, if I'm Ari Emanuel and I'm looking at this very concerned, do I see this as the potential choke point of Dana White's run in the UFC as president? I don't mean to be that fucking Mike Francesa, shock jock sports bullshit guy, but
empires fall and everyone's, you're popular until you get thrown out, and this might be that situation again. He's been kept on since the purchase of the UFC. We all know him as the figurehead, but he could be out at any point if it doesn't make sense. Stranger things have happened. It's just a weird question. I mean, we're talking about the UFC being in financial trouble to some degree.
Well, the company that owns it is in financial trouble, and the UFC is a big leader for any company in the billions.
Doubt, but it would be interesting. Would that mean at some point there's a possibility that the UFC could be sold again?
I don't know if it'll be sold, but I don't know. Joe Blair in the chat saying Dana getting pushed out if Fight Island goes wrong isn't crazy talk. Brendan Sokler saying, any thoughts on Conor hitting the pads, and many saying his speed isn't up to snuff. I don't know if it's a matter of speed. I think Conor McGregor's power and Conor McGregor's skills, like you saw, he seemed to be in the best shape of his career in that fight against Cowboy Cerrone.
He looks great.
WME, Endeavor is the name of the company that owns it. WME IMG was the name before that. Corporate shuffling bullshit. That the name doesn't matter. It's owned by Ari Emanuel. It's a mega talent agency, and they tried to go public and it failed. Earlier this year, they tried to go public. It didn't work.
Is that because of the COVID?
No, it's not because of the COVID. They just
didn't work.
Just didn't fit. Just didn't end up working.
Endeavor's a big agency.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest in the world. It's the biggest in the world. It's the biggest talent agency in the world. And their attempt to go public crashed and burned. Jackass Joe 28 donating $4.99 for the cause. Don't you think McGregor gonna box and make bank? Hey, we talked about it just a minute ago. Pacquiao fight, a rematch with Mayweather. Dog, maybe. I don't know.
It's a spectacle and it's enjoyable, man. I mean, I know I watched that Mayweather fight.
We watched it together.
Yeah.
We watched that fight together.
It was a great spectacle. Look, he could go to the WWE and, it's not going to make as much money.
If you're Vince McMahon right now,
but
it's 1:30 in the morning. Vince McMahon's awake right now, and you're like, this motherfucker, I've got him where I want him.
Hey,
McGregor and Riddle at WrestleMania.
That would be fantastic. Look, it went well with Ronda Rousey. I think he would flourish in the WWE. I think that would be fantastic. He could still do more stuff in the UFC, but his legacy there is set. And if it's not going to give him a payday, why risk being knocked out again?
Yeah.
Why risk getting hurt? And do it for the other fighters. If money's not an option,
the only thing left for McGregor is legacy fights. It's the rematch with Habib, and it's legacy fights. It's Silva. It's the trilogy with Diaz. It's trying to go for that third belt. But if Dana White's not willing to pay John Jones, the guy who he's excused for everything,
he's not
everything, and he won't even pay him for that.
Yeah. So what we're saying is Dana's a cheap fuck, right? Is that what we're?
So
many words.
Ostensibly.
Would they say that on like CSNBC? CNBC.
Yeah. That's what they say on Mad Money. He's a cheap piece of shit.
He's a cheap fuck. Just you want to buy, sell low because he's a cheap fuck. It's a bull's market.
We'll hope to have more on this on the 6th round. Well, we won't, but the guys, Zane and the team in the 6th round will have it. Someone saying Vince doesn't have the scratch. He's got the money. He's got the money. Let's hold the fucking phone here. They're making $500 million from TV deals. You don't think he's got the money for? You don't think Fox would pony up the money for a Conor McGregor? Oh, Dana, yeah, Dana. But
Dana what?
Because no, he's saying not Vince Dana, but then don't put all your money in fucking Fight Island. That's like buying a timeshare. It's stupid.
You don't have the money and then piss a ton of money.
Yeah.
Look, if you wanted to do Fight Island again, put up a the fights are simple. If you're not having crowds, who gives a fuck about building a venue? You know.
I don't fucking know, dude.
I don't get that at all. There's something more to that that's a little bit deceptive and devious, unless this is a big opportunity for the government of Abu. No, I'm just talking out my ass here. I have nothing to back that up, but it just seems strange that in a time frame where you're in a hurry to get these international fights done, that you're building arenas. It's very odd and very peculiar, and there's got to be something more that's going to come out that explains a little bit of this. Is one of those things that we'll find out about 5 months from now.
Yeah.
That'll make more sense, or sometime next year. But it's absurd. It's just absurd.
Someone's asking, is Dana avoiding tax and drug testing? Well, obviously not, because he operates in the United States and he works with USADA. Brendan Sokler saying there's plenty of NYC Broadway stages. Throw the fighters in the seats to watch. New York State Athletic Commission wouldn't let that shit fly.
Yeah, it's not from a lack of finding venues.
Conors ducking Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson just got dusted by Justin Gaethje. A fight with Tony isn't going to happen anyway.
Listen, that would be a great draw no matter what, because it's Conor. I mean, again, that's a legacy fighter. It's a special attraction. Seeing him fight Anderson Silva would have been very odd, but it's just a dream matchup. That would
freak fights.
Yeah,
that's what Pride is. And if I'm Scott Coker right now and I'm in Bellator, and I have DAZN money and Viacom money, you have Viacom CBS money. If you're not making the call Monday morning to Steven Espinoza, who basically oversees Bellator now, and he's the head of Showtime, and he's kind of been the guy that helped build Showtime pay-per-view back up. If you're not looking at him and saying, if we tried right now to get Jorge Masvidal, John Jones, and Conor McGregor for a CBS special,
can they
or
do
a
that?
pay-per-view, if they're under contract, or if you're just like you're building this pitch for Bellator. If you're Scott Coker and you're not in the back of your head thinking, I can get back on CBS, I can get Conor McGregor on prime time television or on pay-per-view, and I can do whatever I want because I have Viacom money. I have one of the biggest media conglomerates in the world backing my company. They are my bosses. They own the company. And I have Steven Espinoza, who works with Floyd Mayweather, who works with PBC. You have all the ability right then and there to sign Conor McGregor to the richest contract in pro sports for boxing and MMA.
Is he technically a free agent?
Well, let's see what happens.
Sign
Sign him to a boxing deal. Do the Lex Luger gimmick. For those who don't know, Lex Luger left WCW in 1991, late 91, early 92, to join the WBF, Vince McMahon's bodybuilding federation. Then months later, signed with the WWE. So you can structure a deal where you get Conor McGregor in a PBC deal or a CBS boxing deal, fighting on Showtime, on pay-per-view.
Yeah, you could get him to be a boxer, no doubt. I mean, but the question is, you wouldn't get him to fight MMA. He'd have, if he has a contract.
Yeah, but you work that part out later. Conor McGregor in the public eye, fighting on a PBC card on Showtime, will draw you 1 million viewers.
See, I'm trying to think of it in other sports terms. But wouldn't UFC have the rights if he had a contract, or like a John Jones situation? He has a contract with UFC.
Yeah, but we don't know. We don't know what these deals look like. That's the thing. We don't know what these UFC deals look like. I don't mean to be just espousing shit
because the fighters keep it that way.
It's Dana. It's all Dana. It's all the way these deals are structured through the UFC. I don't know how many fights Conor McGregor has left on his current deal. But it seems like they were negotiating, and it seemed to be a bout-to-bout deal. He signed him to a boxing contract. Dana can't fuck him there. Dana can't touch him.
But he has to box, and he's not going to win many. I mean, look, when you go into somebody else's field, it's a field. And Manny Pacquiao, are you washed up or not?
Well, you don't have him fight Manny.
No, that's true.
You build him to Manny. You fucking have him fight Joe Blow Jones or whoever the shit. Sell out the Barclays Center. Showtime special, millions of people, or a CBS special, Conor McGregor's first boxing fight since fighting Floyd Mayweather.
You do get, you could get something
You
out
can ride that motherfucker out.
There's some money to be made in that, no doubt. No doubt, but it's just interesting. I don't know.
There's a lot of weird options here. Shake and bake breaks. But what do you want us to do to invite you on the show? What are you doing there, pal?
He wants to be invited on the show.
800-233-9797.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, he certainly stole the thunder of UFC 250.
Oh, he certainly did. I'm trying to look at Twitter here. Tommy Toholt saying retiring from MMA is the new hotness. It's weird. This is so weird. When you look at all of this, an emotionally charged Dana White, I don't give a fuck. I'm trying my best to keep the train on the tracks. Well, the train
Jesus
is.
Christ, what kind of response is that?
The train is.
Is that his quote?
Yeah. Dana, the train is pulling into the station, but half the tracks are kind of careening into a ravine.
That response was like a fucking overworked dad at a factory. I don't need your shit. You know how hard it is to keep a roof over your head? What kind of response was that? Well, that certainly doesn't help make things better.
Dana White on the situation with Jones, Masvidal, and McGregor. We've been here before. This has happened to us before more than once, too. Yeah, but not when the three biggest stars in the sports go tell you to go fuck yourself.
That's not a great response.
No.
I got a lot going on over here. I'm under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I got to build this island that I didn't need to build on an island run by the United Arab Emirates, because fuck you. And also the travel, the transportation. This is a boom. This is Firefest. This is Firefest.
I don't understand all the aspects of that. It can't be that insane. The international travel, so what? That happens. That's not a big deal.
But you're doing an entire month's worth of cards there. You're flying people there. You're having them stay there. The visas, the fucking bullshit of all that.
See, that to me seems like the least
Hold on.
difficult.
Jackass Joe 28. I didn't mean to not read your questions. I'm not looking at the chat. I'm sorry. What were your questions? I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, just re-ask him.
It's not about getting signed. It's about him wanting to fight. It's...
Well, no, it could be both. I mean, it just depends what it is. If if he's not getting paid enough, it might not be worth it anymore.
Yeah, no.
Look, every time you get into that octagon, you're putting your life at risk for sure. Your long-term
here's
health.
the comment. Yo, it's not Attitude Era in the WWE would make as much money. Seems like Conor only cares about money and that boxing makes more money for him. Yeah, of course.
Right, but wrestling is a different thing entirely than UFC is. You can come out there and just entertain and not put his life at risk in the same capacity. Mm-hmm. Look, man, at any point you can get knocked so silly it's over for your career. And it doesn't happen quite often, but you go out there, you're paying for somebody to kick you in the head. That's what you get paid to do, and it becomes a dangerous thing. And at some point, is it worth the money? Because for a guy like Conor, look, he's set for life if he's invested wisely. Mm-hmm. He's doing other things. He's not just sitting on his money. He's made more money in boxing than he had in the UFC, which is astonishing. And at some point, if it was just the money, he would have. I don't think he even would have come back for the Cowboy Cerrone fight. To be quite honest, I think it's a combination of your passion and also the money.
Mm. So, Jackass Show, you guys are awesome to address that. You rock. Sorry, man. Yeah, we try to stay consistent with the chat. We were just caught up in this conversation.
It's hard to read and talk at the same time, man.
Eco Geek saying fighters currently get 18%. That is atrocious. Yeah, that is atrocious. When you look at the way, like the MLB season this year may not happen because player pay is. The owners are looking to slash it significantly because they're not going to be able to make extra income from ticket sales, retail, all these other aspects.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. In a fight between millionaires and billionaires, I'm never going to side with the billionaires.
No.
To be quite honest.
You just side with the millionaires because they're the default option. We take a look at this just...
Every empire must fall, man, in one way or another. Boy, this COVID changed everything for everybody in every aspect of it. Dana's in one of those fucking 2020 memes. My plans in 2020.
Bradley Kitts saying John Jones and the big fighters have no right about supporting families. He gets millions to fight. Luxury is not support. He can retire now and still fund 20 normal lives. That's not the point.
What are you talking about?
Like
That's
if
not,
you're a high, yeah, it's your worth. Like if you work at a job and you supply X number of output that generates X number of profit, and you're not receiving a decent portion of that profit.
And let's be honest, also the difference is as a fighter, you're also sacrificed. As an athlete in general, anytime you perform and participate in athletic competition, but especially mixed martial arts or combat sports, you're sacrificing years of your life.
Yeah. Literally
years of your life. You are destroying your body to compete. And so it's a little bit different than any other sport. Look, yeah, these fighters make more than the average person makes, sure, but you got to remember, when they're done, they're done. There is no, when you retire at, 35, what are you supposed to do with the rest of your life? That's really what it's about.
So taking a look here from Brett Okamoto, he asked Dana White about Jorge Masvidal, reiterating he'd like to be released from his contract. Masvidal just signed a new deal, 7 fights left. Okamoto asked if he'd ever consider releasing Masvidal as he requested. He said, "That's the dumbest question you've ever asked me."
Okay. Not a great response,
no.
But he gets his point across.
Here's one from Chamdakar Sahu, sorry. You don't have to fight if these guys want to sit out and retire. If that's what Conor McGregor, John Jones, and Jorge Masvidal are feeling right now.
Sorry about that.
This is Dana basically saying he doesn't give a fuck. If you don't think I want to throw out my hand to say fuck this shit, the amount of people I have gunning at me right now is insane. Do you know why, Dana? Do you know why they're gunning for you? You built an island in the middle of the fucking desert.
Such a weird.
He did what the Qatari government did to build up rapport with their.
Built a whole island.
This is fucking dumb. Fucking dumb.
I mean,
I don't mean to be, base about it and be basic about my assumption.
I don't want to be dramatic, but are we seeing not the downfall of the UFC? I mean, the UFC will be around and it'll survive. Is this a drastic change?
This is some keeping it real goes wrong shit from Dana. In my opinion, why would Conor go out on Twitter and then talk all that shit that he did and then all of a sudden retire? So I don't think it's going to happen. Conor's just frustrated. That comes in from Nathan Emmett in the chat.
Sure, but the bigger point is not. It's that a lot of people are frustrated. There's a couple,
this just happened like 45 minutes ago. Conor McGregor is trending with over 4,200 tweets right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, it's not just about Conor McGregor, though. I think the bigger story is the UFC as a whole and what happens to it and Endeavor. This is kind of symptomatic of that. That's the whole point. That's what makes this a little bit odd. Again, Conor has a lot of options to...
Dana White, anybody that doesn't want to roll with me, get the fuck off the bus. Newsman asking who the fuck are these mugs? It's Matt Ryan and Harry Terjanian. The name gimmick says it all.
Yeah, it's right underneath you, fuckface.
Ian Weist sending $1.99 into the super chat.
Thank you, Ian.
What a shame that he won't get to fight Gaethje. Yeah, that's another thing. We don't get to see the Gaethje fight. We don't get to see him fight Poirier. We don't get to see the Khabib rematch. There's so many fights we don't get to see. Or at least for now. Who the fuck knows? By Monday morning, none of this shit can count.
Fight Island might be a success. Ja Rule thinks it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Well, we need to know what Ja Rule thinks at a time like this, to be honest with you.
Well, I think it would be great to see the documentary where Daniel Cormier has to go. At one point, Dana asked me to suck somebody's dick for water, and I was willing to do it.
Joe Blair saying Dana about to be really lonely on this bus. We're getting towards 2 o'clock in the morning here. You think all this talk is about money? Spade just said in the chat that he's saying he's retired. Yeah, it's all money.
It's absolutely about money. But I could understand him retiring. Look, again, he's He's the one who has to put his life on the line every time he gets out there, put his physical health out there. They all do.
Yeah.
Every time they get out there, and at some point it feels, the older you get, you have less of that in you, and less fights in you, and you have to be smarter with them. And at some point, if somebody's fucking with you, you just go. Look, at any point, McGregor can sign a fucking contract to go fight Pacquiao, and it's going to make him more. I mean, he's going to fight a guy who's washed up in his own sport, in another sport, and he'll still make more money in the very sport that he is amazing at. Do you understand the insanity of that?
He can walk right now and make $80 million. He can make $20 million fighting a fucking Palooka for PBC.
You're right. Scott Coke could, with the money that Viacom has, you're right. They could just put on a boxing pay-per-view just with Conor McGregor and easily make tens of millions of dollars.
It'd be an unfair fight.
What is the most he's ever made in UFC?
It would probably be 30 to 50 million. He probably made a boatload for the Khabib fight.
How much?
30 to 50, maybe.
I mean, and that's great money, no doubt. But
Dana White, here's another quote. Thank you to Shamatkar Sandhu. I keep fucking up your name, pal, but you're bringing the fire tonight on Twitter.
Yeah.
The guys who want to fight will keep them fighting. There's more eyeballs on these kids right now than any other time in the history of the business. But if you can't build stars, and you're losing the stars you have, you're not going to keep that. Like, it's...
Look, especially when you're asking people to pay $65 a month.
65 on top of an ESPN Plus subscription.
Yeah, but I mean the ESPN Plus, whatever, but the expectation is that you're expecting people to pay all this money to go in. It becomes a situation if they don't have stars.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to get that every month, and it's gonna drown you.
Yeah?
We're wrapping up in a minute.
Okay.
Conor McGregor just retired.
Yeah, there we go.
Brilliant comedian, writer, and person who's seen Danny White's asshole more than times than many. Stephanie Sotilli. I'm
not surprised that Conor McGregor is retiring, as no one is.
Nope.
As no one is.
Neither is Olive the dog. Olive the dog coming in on Twitter saying, "I put 20 stakes on that. Came in with some big money here tonight."
It's interesting. I mean, fucking Dana. I mean, look, I haven't watched the press conference, so I don't know how.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the tone with all these statements. He sounds like he's having a mental breakdown.
Yeah, this sounds like the man on the. This sounds like someone in the third act. This sounds like Scarface in the third act.
I mean, I don't. What do you want from me? I'm doing the best I can over here. Very odd. Very odd. But it might mean some great things for the fighters. I don't know. 18% is atrocious. Atrocious for the fighters to put. And then also on top of that, the Reebok deal.
Mm-hmm. Joe Blair saying Dana worked his ass into a shoot. Not wrong. SDAK47 saying they all playing to make more money. Yeah, this is all the work. But, Conor retired a year ago, too. Yeah, we mentioned that at the top of the program.
Yeah. Again, it's just not just Conor retiring; it's everyone else. John Jones saying he wants out. Jorge Masvidal, Henry Cejudo.
There's a lot of smoke with this fire.
Terry Funk.
Yes.
Mick Foley. I mean, all these people. They've had it.
We've been going for about 45 minutes now. Stay tuned. Stay locked. Pardon me. To MMA Mania and Bloody Elbow across social media and online at bloodyelbow.com and MMAmania.com for more developments on this. Harry, any final thoughts?
Kind of interesting news. It's be curious to see where this all goes. Again, it would just be silly. I would just brush it off as all right. Conor McGregor is retiring again, but it's just a strange time right now with everything going on. The Fight Island stuff, Henry Cejudo, John Jones, and then also Dana's mental breakdown, apparently. I got to go watch that press conference because it's a little bit odd. These statements are odd. Like, what the fuck you want from me? Can't you see I'm trying up here? I'm doing my best. It's like the fucking finishing speech for First Blood, Rambo first.
I just thought this.
I come out here to these fans People call me baby killer. I live on crap like that. I didn't start this. You started it. I don't know, man. It's just weird. It's weird news.
Yeah. We'll see how this goes. Follow MMA Mania on Twitter, Bloody Elbow on Twitter, as we try to bring you more updates on this. Hey, if anything, we'll try to have a video breaking all of this down on Monday, seeing what the fuck is going on, because honestly, it's more of a what the fuck. This is a what the fuck is going on situation, as the
long weekend.
As the UFC again has lost one of their biggest stars, or has had Conor McGregor's retired. Days after Jorge Masvidal has demanded his release from the UFC, John Jones has demanded that he relinquish the UFC light heavyweight title and demanded his release. And just a month ago, Henry Cejudo has retired from mixed martial arts as well. Once again, stay tuned to ESPN MMA's Bloody Elbow and MMA Mania for more coverage. For Harry Terjanian, I'm Matt Ryan. So long from New Jersey.